Hi parents, caregivers, and everyone who is interested or has a stake in special needs. Welcome to It's TimMy Time. I'm your host, Alvin, and I'm thrilled to have you join us on this journey of discovery. Come and learn more as we navigate the depths of knowledge and understanding about children with special needs. We're still in the midst of the Autism Awareness Month, and for this episode, we'll be talking about how would parents normally find out that their child has learning disabilities. Before we begin, I want to share something exciting which we are planning, which is the TimMy Autism Conference. We had our first one last year and all our participants were really inspired and encouraged. You can check out the highlights video on what happened at the show notes on YouTube. This year is going to be held on the 27th of July, which is on a Saturday, and we're having one full day conference somewhere in the Klang Valley. We're still nailing some key details down, but do save the date as we're having different key speakers and workshops to help equip and educate you to be able to be effective in caring and helping your child with special needs progress. More details coming soon. So ladies and gentlemen, we want to invite our speaker today or someone that will be sharing with us today. Today our podcast is featuring an extraordinary individual who wears many hats with grace and dedication. Meet Sarah Fong, the passionate principal of Little Legends Childcare Centre since its inception in 2013. She's also a devoted mom of two and the esteemed pastor for the children's church in X Church, known as X Kids. Sarah is a beacon of inspiration. She embodies the vision of drawing out great legacies in little children and little legends. She also has a mission to nurture and empower every child. She believes in providing a nurturing environment where young minds can flourish and discover their unique potential. Beyond her professional endeavors, Sarah's unwavering commitment extends to advocating for children with special needs, ensuring inclusivity and support for every child under her care. So welcome, Sarah. Thank you so much for joining our podcast today.
Thanks for having me here.
So Sarah, as a principal of a childcare centre, I'm sure you had first-hand experience in interacting with children with learning disabilities. I mean, you probably interact with all kids, okay? So you probably have a lot of experience there. But especially children with learning disabilities, or of course, we also say children with special needs. How do you identify them through your years of experience? Is there a checklist, or mainly through your experience, you kind of know that maybe this child needs some help in that area?
Okay, so for me, I've been working with children, in X Kids since 2005 and also for Little Legends since 2013. So for me, it's definitely through experience. Of course, I do some read up through experience mainly. So normally by about 1+, we would probably start to see some signs of either a delay or like maybe lack of eye contact. But I normally wouldn't be so quick to say that, they have special needs. I'll probably just maybe highlight to the parents during the parent-teachers meeting to say that, hey, we noticed that, this child has a bit of a speech delay compared to the peers, but I would say that don't need to rush to go for an assessment, but probably observe a little bit more, and then on the parents' part and also on the school part, we will do some observation. And then, but if let's say by 1.5 we notice, then maybe about 2, then we will assess again, and then we will let the parents know that, okay, I do find that your child has a bit of delay in terms of speech, or maybe in terms of motor skill, or in terms of social skill. Then we will just bring it up to the parents, and then we allow the parents to also have some time to because it can be quite a news for them. So we allow the parents to think through, and then we can discuss again, whether they would like to explore assessment or even some kind of therapy. Yeah.
So it sounds like, yes, of course, experience, but it does sound like there are certain markers that you have noticed. Is it a general delay in terms of like their development? Of course, as a childcare educator, you probably know, okay, by this age, they will probably need to do certain things. By that age, they probably need to do certain things. But like, is there certain key indicators that you can share with us? I mean, like, I think you mentioned a few already.
Normally the first thing that we would notice is one is speech. Yeah, speech. Normally, by 1+, they would have some words. Okay, but of course, there were also instances where we felt that okay, this child may have, a speech delay or maybe some telltale sign of like autism, and then we spoke to the parents, and the parents also feel like, I think so. Yeah, but however, it was just a delay. I also have, students who were like this. And then after that, he could talk non-stop. Yeah, so I wouldn't be so quick because some children are just maybe a little bit slower, or especially if they are the first child. Because first child, you may not have a sibling that you could learn, the speech, or, maybe certain behavior or habits. First child, I would say that, give it a bit more time. Sometimes it's the eye contact. Yeah, when you speak to the child, whether they are able to respond to you or whether they are able to answer you. Eye contact. Sometimes is body movement. Like maybe sometimes they can't, let's say they can't lift up something, or their fine motor skill, is a bit slower compared to other children. Or sometimes is meltdowns. Okay, meltdowns in terms of like when they come to daycare. But of course, a lot of kids are when they first join the daycare, they would cry lah because it's a new environment, new teachers, new routines, and all. They have to learn to be independent, compared to being at home. Parents will do a lot of things for them. Yeah, but we normally would give a bit of that time, for the child to settle down. But normally the parents would feel like, okay, something is maybe not so right at home. So normally we will compare notes with parents like, okay, how is this child at home? And then sometimes they'll say, yeah, at home also they have a lot of meltdowns. I also don't know. I also don't understand why, we try our best to make them happy. We try our best to, to accommodate, but there's still a lot of meltdown. So that is also another telltale sign, of maybe is a maybe. So because as an educator, I'm not a professional, I'm not a psychologist or psychiatrist, so I can't give an assessment. But these are some of the signs that we normally would see, like, okay, this child isn't able to settle down or isn't able to respond, like how other children would be. So that's why we will bring it up to the parents. Yeah.
Oh, thanks for sharing that. I mean, I like what you said about like you kind of take time to observe, because just because the child like has certain symptoms doesn't necessarily mean that child has learning disabilities. You kind of gotta wait and see whether they do overcome or progress. At the same time, we also can't ignore the child if it's really different. But it's good to hear that parents do interact with you, because the next question I kind of want to ask is like, so once, let's say you've had enough time, you've seen that, okay, maybe really because you could compare with the classmates, the child really might need some extra support. What would be the next steps that you take? How do you share with the parents? I'm sure not all parents are as open to listen. Could you share like some experience as an educator? Yeah, like what will you do, and how do you inform the parents?
Okay, so in terms of why I say that it's very important, for us to take time is because actually there were also, like just now I mentioned about one child that, when I spoke to the parents, and the parents also felt like, wow, all these meltdowns, it's really unusual. Okay, unusual. And then the parents was like, is my child autistic? Okay. And then after that, I mentioned that this child was I mean, he's fine. He's learning so well. He can speak so well, so many words now. Yeah, but actually, I have another example, another case of like this parent. This happened during pandemic. And the parent actually called because someone recommended Little Legends, and she said that, oh, in another daycare, my child was having a problem, with I mean, the school actually asked the parent to go for assessment. Yeah, because they think that the child has autism. So during pandemic, of course, we couldn't come out freely. So I said that, okay, I will come out just to meet with the parent in Little Legends. And she brought the child. At that time, it was also 1+. And then I took time to just, talk to the parent, and then the child was playing around and all that. And then it was also a very interesting case where after that, I just felt that this child is not autistic because he actually have some form of eye contact. And then as I spoke to the parent, then I found out that this was because the child was put in front of TV, because I mean, the grandparents were gracious enough to offer help to take care of the child, but again, as the child grew after 6 months, they start crawling, and then it can be quite taxing on the grandparents, physically, and sometimes in terms of the time as well, because you need to cook for them, you need to bathe them, it's just so much, right, to take care of a child. So the grandparents put this child in front of TV since 6 months. So that kind of change his sensory development. So this child is very drawn to screen. Okay, so so much so that it felt like he was autistic. But although I mean, I wasn't sure, but I just told the parent that I would give it a try to take in this student, and then we observe as we go along. Okay, so then later we realized that because in Little Legends we do not have screen time, we don't have TV time and all, and then so it's a lot of social interaction that they have. Then we realized that although yes, this child is a little bit slower in terms of motor skill, okay, gross motor skill. That means he couldn't really dance. He loves to sit down. He loves to lie down. Um, all signs of like autism, like he likes to hide under the table and all that. Yeah. Then I realized that, working with my teachers, doing the dance together with him, holding his hand, dancing together with him, he began to improve in terms of his motor skills, in terms of his speech, in terms of his social interaction as well. So then we realized that, hey, actually he's actually perfectly, fine, and the parents were very, very happy, so much so that they decided to have a second child. Yeah. So taking time to get to know them is important. So coming to the question of like, what do I normally do? It is not easy to bring to the parents' attention. I mean, some parents are more aware of special needs. Some parents are not. Some, they have read a lot, or some will tell me that when I tell them, they can't accept. They usually say that no, my child is fine, probably just a little bit slower, and all. Some will say that I also feel that maybe my child. So when I bring it up, normally I'm a little bit careful. I'll say that, oh, actually, we observe that your child doesn't have much speech at maybe say 1+ or 2. Okay. And then as we talk, then I will normally find out like, okay, how are they at home? Do they talk to you? Because sometimes kids at home, they are more comfortable, so they speak more. And then I say, oh yeah, at home also I notice, my child doesn't really tell, or sometimes can have, a little bit of a meltdown. So then suddenly the parents will ask me, do you think my child is autistic? Yes, I can't actually, give a diagnose or, an assessment, but I say that, I mean, this is our observation. I think so. If you like to know more, I would encourage you to go for an assessment, a proper assessment, so that your child better, and then we can actually help your child better as well. So yeah, so some will not be open, and some still don't really want to explore assessment or therapies, but some maybe have read a little bit, and then they say that okay, maybe then they will ask me what should I do. So that's when I say that okay, maybe you can explore assessment, and yeah, I mean some path down assessment and therapies.
Thanks so much for sharing that. I mean, it does sound like you do spend quite a lot of time to, although not officially assess, but assess the child and also see whether they can progress, and so try. I mean, based on your story, it does tell me that not every kid will immediately fall onto the spectrum. Some
Yeah.
are, well, maybe they just have behavioral issues, we will never know. Only through trying, through it's almost like you try until you cannot try it, then you kind of know that you probably have to go to the next step.
Yeah.
But since you were sharing about how like parents vary in responding to you, I mean, part of this podcast is also to educate parents a little bit and give us a little bit of awareness. What do you feel as an educator? Like, because you've talked to so many, those that accept, those that don't accept, those that maybe will probably give you a hard time, and those that will probably work with you because it does look like you do care for children, or their children. But what do you feel like parents should have, like, as they receive the news? I'm just curious to want to know, like, if like you had a chance to tell someone, what would you hope to tell them? No holds barred. I wish you would know this, uh, rather than just respond. And I don't know how you respond. Like, what do you think the parents need to have when they approach their kids, especially in this area?
Mm. I think, I mean, I'm also a parent, I have two kids. I think it's definitely, when you have a child, you definitely want the best, for your children, right? And you have so much of hopes and dreams, and, I mean, so much that you want to experience together with your child. So I think definitely, that openness, I think so, that openness, because actually, I mean, I've been to one seminar before, and I like how they actually put it. Instead of saying special needs, or learning disabilities, I like I like the term learning differences, because it's all about how our sensories work, with I mean, in our body. So I mean, some of them who might be, they I mean, I've worked with so many children, and then some of them are so good in, sometimes it's building blocks, sometimes it's art, sometimes it's music, like, now I have this child who doesn't have much speech, in Little Legends. But when it comes to music, when I have circle time, when I sing, wow, he comes alive. You see the glow in his eyes, and then he will join in. Even though he doesn't have much speech. That's beautiful. That's really, really beautiful. So I prefer, to call it the learning differences, because all of us learn differently. Some of us are better with visual. We are visual learner, or auditory learner. Yeah. So all of us are different we learn with different ways, right? So even for them also, I would say that, is learning differences. And I always tell the children, like, you're probably good in maths, but your friend is better in languages. Some are better in music and art and or football. I always tell the children that, I look at the ball and I run away because I'm afraid of the ball. All of us are just made differently. So I think that openness in terms of parents, that, all of us can be different. God made us differently. So, having special need is not a disease, is not like a sickness, although yes, I mean, children with special needs will need, or learning differences will need different kind of help, just like how all of us, I mean, for me, I'm definitely not good in chemistry, physics and all that, but I'm probably better with, accounts and children and all that. So all of us need help. So I think so that openness in terms of parents, to know that your child can learn differently, and all we need to do is just using a different approach. So I think so that helps us to see things in a very different light, and with that different light that we are seeing, we are able to see that, hey, even though my child learned differently, I'm able to help in other ways, not the usual way, not the usual path that other children would take, but other ways that my child would excel in. And yeah, I mean, I have this, I used to have this student, um when I was doing some plasticine, activity, some craft activity. This is a child that also the parents were like pulling their hairs, have not doing, not excellent in terms of academic. But one day I was doing this craft, and then I gave them different colors, and then this child, instead of like a normal a normal kid would just, okay, teacher asked me to do this, I would do this. Okay, I used the plasticine to form the word obey. Okay, that was what I was doing as well. But this child, who was termed as naughty, disobedient, non-responsive, don't respond in the usual way, means naughty. Okay. um and this child would take two colors or three colors of the plasticine and mix it, together, and it looks like the marble color, and then would form the word in a very different way. And I told the dad, I said, hey, your kid is so creative, just like you, because he is very good with art. And the dad here, because in a usual way, in going to school, academic is important. However, this child is just built differently, and then he is very, very good with art. So I say that you may want to explore, giving him some art classes, so that he has something that he knows that, hey, I'm good at this. Yeah, so it's just how we see things, how we see our children, who are built in a different way.
Wow, thanks so much for sharing that. I mean, that's quite powerful, Sarah, as you're sharing, because you're talking about perspectives, right? And the way we evaluate. I think in our society, especially Asian society, we evaluate things very one-sided. Academics, like what you said. Physics, chemistry. But we don't really think about the other areas, like, are they good with their hands? Can they create things? And I like what you shared about not learning disability, but learning differently. And I've come to learn that that's true. Just because they learn differently than me doesn't mean that it's a disability. And I think having a different perspective of it, it is important. And parents, if you're listening, be open. Just because your child's not good at one thing doesn't mean your child's not good at everything. I think just being open to discover and find out more is helpful. So I'm a bit curious, Sarah, because you've managed to talk to a lot of people, I'm guessing, a lot of parents. And of course, some will be responsive, some won't be responsive. But I'm curious to find out from you, however much you can share, despite however the parents responded to the news, what were the steps that the parents took, after the news, which yielded, I wrote here the best result, but I guess best result is not best result in terms of like, the child get better, but best result in terms of the child progressing or growing. What do you feel like? What were they? Did they have any qualities? Did they take different steps? I'm sure one of the steps was assessment, but what was the condition of the parent? Because one of the things that I want to find out is if there's a parent here listening to us, they might be wondering, what do I need so that once I accept it, I can go further faster. Because I also do know different people who may have accepted it, but whether it's due to denial or whether it's due to not being able to accept it, the journey becomes harder, slower, more difficult. So what do you feel based on your observation? What were the steps, if there was any steps, or what were the qualities the parents had, if they had, that yielded the fastest? Like, okay, this person just went for it. Could you just share?
Fastest. I think, I mean, of course, the clear path will be, I mean, if you notice that there's some differences, speak to people. I think so that helps. Speak to the right people. Okay. Speak to different parents, or teachers that have experiences to find out a little bit more. Reading it up, it will really help so that you have a clue. But also don't be paranoid. Sometimes over reading, may make you feel like, oh no, my child is this and that, and having so many, the checkbox
Yeah, suddenly
of
got one thing
every.
only, end up got 10 things, right?
Yeah. So I tell parents that don't be paranoid. Don't be paranoid. Okay. Just speak to different ones, but at the same time, just speak to the right people but as an educator, I do encourage parents if after, I think, at least 6 to a year of working with the school, if you still get, some kind of feedback, I do encourage parents to go for a proper assessment, with developmental peaks. Okay. Why I say that is because normally a child who have learning differences would have some kind of challenge, whether and normally it they will be termed as they just ignore, they are disobedient, they're ignoring teachers' instructions, okay, or they are annoying the friends, okay, and so normally those are the feedback, okay, and normally you would think that okay, I think it's behavioral, and normally they would get timeout, they will get spanked, they will get isolated, because they are not able to integrate with the rest of the children. So normally that is the case, okay? Or they will get a lot of negative feedback or comments from their classmates or anyone in the community, okay? Yeah. However, why I say that I encourage, if, after, at least 6 months to a year of receiving this feedback, then I think it's time to go for an assessment. Why? Because uh, firstly is that I think we need to help the child. Okay. It helps that the parents know what condition, okay, that your child is going through. um, Actually it's learning differences, sometimes it's ADHD, sometimes is dyslexia that they have. Okay, it's not that they cannot read, it's just that the words are all dancing. They are all dancing. For us we just read it as ABC, but for them is that I can't read because the words are all dancing in my eyes. They are mirror image, and I will be thinking like, why I've taught you for like 1,000 times, but still you cannot remember. It's not. It's because the words are dancing. Teacher, I don't know which one you're talking about. So they have that struggle, and many times it can be helped. There is some techniques, the therapies can help and all that, whether it's speech, whether it's dyslexia, whether it's ADHD and all that. So like recently, I told a parent that uh I think your child has ADHD. I think, but I can't be sure until you go and get it. That's by observation. One of the parent came for inquiry. So I said that go for it. Why? Because once you know what your child learning style is, you're able to help. Okay. So for example, like this one or two kids that I've encountered, they always get into the way of other children because of they're always like, oh teacher, he's kicking me. But actually no, their body, they're just not able to control. Okay, so that's why they normally can't sit in a way like, we cross leg for a long time, we are fine, but for them, they just can't. Okay, so normally their leg would kick other people, and then the friends would be like, he kicked me, and you get this like all the time. So I tell parents that once you know, then once the assessment comes out, normally they would have recommendation of what you can do at home and what you can do at school. So that firstly, there will be understanding for you and for the teachers and the friends of what this child is going through, or this child isn't able to read because the words are all dancing. Okay, then the therapy could share with the teacher what can help them with learning. Okay, and then from time to time, the teacher and the therapy could meet up or even have a call to see what is the progress of the child. So or at home, this is what you can do, or this is how you can speak to your child, so that instead of, I was telling one of the parent, I said, instead of like, hey, Sarah, is this what you want? So there's another way to ask, like, Sarah, what do you want? Can you tell me, do you want the cheese? Say cheese. Okay. So because sometimes, parents, your children so well that you don't actually require them to actually speak to you. So that's why it's a yes, no. And then they just nod, and then, or they shake their head. But actually, to help them to speak is that you have to ask them, what do you want? Tell me. You say, Mommy, please, I want the cheese. Okay, so it starts with 1 word to 2 words to 3 words. So there's actually a way to actually help the children to grow in their speech or in their motor skills, or in terms of concentration, their attention span, how you can actually help them to increase that, to lengthen that attention span. So that helps. The relief comes firstly when you know what your child is facing or struggling. It helps the teachers to know that, okay, at least this child is not naughty, but facing some learning difficulties. And then for the friends and also, the community around, to know that, okay, now we know that this child is not just naughty, but he just needs a lot of things to occupy because of his short attention span. Yeah, so that helps a lot. Yeah, or even sometimes educating the friends. You know, I have encountered where in X Kids, there was a story about this teacher. He has some special needs, and then but he struggled with tearing masking tape. And what happened was that day when he was tearing the masking tape, he couldn't tear and paste it, on the floor to mark, the 1 meter the distance that we used to have. So he couldn't, and our children were laughing at him. But I know that this teacher has a certain challenge in terms of motor skill. So I decided to not teach the Bible story that day, but just to interview the teacher. And then the teacher actually shared with the kids his challenges. Okay. And then the children just dropped their jaw. They didn't know, and they felt bad about it. But that opened up, the compassion, in the children, to understand that there are other people who struggle with small little things that we find it so easy, to achieve. And I taught them to like be inclusive, to be supportive. And there were days that I would tell the kids that, hey, we have this friend, he's new, and then he has autism, and then we all need to watch out for his or her safety. So could you help me with this? And they gladly help. So that's a beautiful, picture that we could see. And I always feel that our children needs to be more inclusive, so that we can build a community of love, of support towards one another. Yeah.
Wow, that's so much of good stuff, Sarah, as you're sharing. I mean, one thing I caught was, of course, you shared about acceptance or openness in the beginning, and also understanding. And I think as you were sharing about like therapy and you as a childcare provider and also the parents, it sounds like a team as in TEAM, you know. And I'm saying all these words because it is sort of like part of our pillars for TimMy Society. I think the next episode I'm going to share a little bit more about that. But it's quite cool to hear that some of these key things that we believe in, you know, are also key things that people do need to be able to help their child progress. And I also caught that actually the parents themselves could be, well, I wouldn't say causing the problem, but not helping. You know, if our child has a speech delay, you know, and I would say I admit I probably fall into the category of like, you're so used to doing things at home without with just body language communication, that when we expect the child to communicate a different way outside because other people need that communication, and then they kind of can't because of what we practice at home. So actually, us as parents, we also do have a part to play in the development of our child. I think that was a very beautiful picture you painted in terms of like getting the kids to understand not just other children, but also adults who are probably in this space, you know, where they can't do things normally like the rest of us can. And having that sense of understanding is very powerful. You know, I mean, I can hear that you're passionate about, you know, this area about children with special needs. I mean, one thing that the audience don't really know is that Sarah and I were actually pretty good friends. And she was the one that sort of had the difficult job to reveal to me and my wife that our child was in the spectrum, you know, but it started our journey in this area. And I know Sarah is also very passionate about helping children in the spectrum with learning differences. You know, and it does go beyond your vocation as a principal. So this is, I guess, a bigger question. What do you think all of us need, right? To be able to help parents or children with special needs? What is that I don't know, one or two things that we need? I know you mentioned understanding. That's one, probably something that we need. But what else do you think we need to be able to want to help?
I think it's love. Yeah, I think so. We need to love one another, knowing that life is already full of challenges. I think so. With a little bit more love, you know, comes that compassion, that kindness, that understanding, that patience for one another. You know, I need people to be patient with me when it comes to sports because I'm really not good with sports, right? So I would, you know, I always tell my students that, you know, I think you're probably better than me in terms of sports because teacher Sarah is not good. So be patient when you have to teach me, you know, sports. So I guess we just got to be humble as well, that we all face our own challenges, our own struggles in terms of learning. Um, like for example, for me, I'm actually more a visual learner, more than auditory. Yeah, my hearing, you know, is not the best. I always don't do very well in terms of, you know, my hearing test, even IELTS also. You know, I always struggle with that. So we all have our own challenges. So what would help is that we understand that all of us have learning differences and we help one another. You know, the last thing that we want, you know, it really broke my heart, you know, to hear of, you know, parents who struggle so much, you know, to raise a kid up, and all they need is just a bit of patience, a bit of understanding, so that, you know, they could have that strength to go on for another day. Because having a normal kid that we have to take care of, you know, for 24 hours is can be challenging. Yeah, it can be draining. What more, you know, if we have a child with a special needs, sometimes it takes a lot more to care for them. I still remember, you know, there was one time when we were running a children holiday program. Um, this mom have a child that has cerebral palsy. Okay, so he hasn't been able to join in any, you know, games or something because of his physical disability. Yeah, and that wasn't he was uh he became like that because of the delay, you know, in delivery. So that his brain, you know, didn't have, I mean, he didn't have enough oxygen, you know, in the brain. So the mom shared, and thank God we have enough volunteers to bring him and play games. So our our volunteers actually held him and then run together. And because of that, and the rest of the children actually helped to feed him. It was such a beautiful thing, that to see our kids doing that. But what really touched my heart was during the holiday program, the mom told me that that was the first time after having this child that she had a 2 hours off going to Starbucks and enjoy a cup of coffee. So it is not easy. Yeah. So I think so a little bit of understanding, a little bit of love and patience, would go a long, long way for the families. Yeah.
Wow. It's so cool to be able to hear that actually we can start this or start educating our children since young about this area so that when they grow up, they will be a little bit more understanding, a little bit more aware, and a little bit more compassionate. Thanks so much for sharing that. I've got one last question for you because you have been an educator for 10 over years, and you've had all this experience. What would you want to say to educators or teachers when they encounter children with learning differences, or maybe when they find themselves having to break the news to parents? I know it's definitely not an easy task, and it does sound like you spend a lot of time building relationship with the parents. It's not just they're not just your client, they're not just someone that send their kids, but you do take time, and probably also by now have the wisdom on when to tell and when not to tell, and even that also they might not receive it well because I do tell people as a parent, you never want to hear bad news about your kids, and sometimes this can be perceived as bad news if you're not so aware. But what would be the advice that you would give educators or teachers that would find themselves in this space?
Yeah. As educator, I think never give up on any children that you teach. Never give up, because we never want anyone to give up on us, right? Not our parents, not our teachers. The last thing that a child would want to hear is that, I think so, you can't be helped. You just sit at the corner and then, you just do your own thing and teacher have no time for you. I think so that's really heartbreaking. That's breaking the spirit of the kids. Okay. And we'll never know what, every child can achieve if we would just go the extra mile for them, and just extend that smile, that hand, that hug. Some of them, they just need a squeeze, just to feel, because they can't feel the normal way that we feel, but just a squeeze, would beat 1,000 words that you say to them. Yeah. So I think it's never give up on them. Just keep trying. I think so, in life is already difficult enough. But as we are educating children, they need so much of hope. They need so much, they need someone to believe in them. Yeah. So I would say that never give up, because, the children that you are teaching now, or the most difficult one that you are teaching now, would one day, be, I don't know, the next businessman, the next teacher, the next principal, the next, I don't know. I mean, yeah. Yeah, I remember when I was volunteering in my mom's school as a replacement teacher. What happened was my mom told me, you're going to be in this last class and watch out for this kid, because he would take someone's bottle and drain out the water and go and refill with the fish pond water. Yeah. But I chose to believe, and I said that, you know what, I'm going to reach out to him. So I became his best friend. And then instead of taking my bottle and refilling it with the fish pond water, he actually found out that I was going to leave during that replacement period. And he came and say, teacher, I heard that you are leaving. I said, yeah. And he said that, thank you for being my friend. So yeah, never give up. Keep believing. And I tell parents the same thing. You got to be your children's best believer. You got to believe again and again, even though sometimes you feel like, you are giving up, but never give up on them. Yeah, they can achieve so much more just with that one smile, that one handshake, that one squeeze, and that, good job, well done. I think it goes a long way.
Wow, that's a really good way to end this podcast. Thank you so much, Sarah, for sharing your story with us. It's been a real pleasure, and I hope that you will continue to impact the lives of the children around you. If any of you out there, you have a child that's young and have not started primary school, and you're interested to send them to a childcare center, I would highly recommend Little Legends Childcare Centre. I think right now they are located in Summit. If you want to find out more about them, you can go to their website at littlelegends.com.my, or even search for Little Legends Childcare Centre on social media on Facebook or Instagram, and then you can get connected with Sarah, find out more. And yeah, I'm sure it's going to be a journey. So thank you so much, everyone, for joining us on this episode of Calm It's TimMy Time, where we've delved a little bit into the world of supporting parents of children with special needs through empathy and compassion. I'm your host, Alvin, and it's truly been an honor to have your company. Remember, it takes a kampong to raise a child. As we part ways, let's continue to cultivate understanding, sow seeds of kindness, and embark on this journey with open hearts. Don't forget to also show us your support by giving us a like, sharing this episode with someone who might benefit from it, or even subscribing to our podcast to stay updated on future episodes. The next episode, we're going to talk about our pillars. It's AUTISM. It spells autism, but instead of a negative, we want to change it into a positive. So find out more. You can connect with us via email at info@timmy.org.my for any questions, suggestions, or just to say hi. Until next time, this is Alvin bidding farewell from Calm It's TimMy Time.